Thank you for joining us. I'm Christopher, and we're going to talk about Diageo's globalization journey today. To begin with, Diageo was established in 1997 as a merger between Guinness and Grand Metropolitan, both publicly traded companies that already operated as multinational corporations. Guinness, established in 1759, had brewing operations in 49 countries and brand presence in 150 countries around the world. Grand Metropolitan, established in 1934 in the hotel business, also had a global reach by the time of the merger with operations throughout the United States and Europe. Those histories and experience helped drive and formulate future strategies at Diageo. Going back to Guinness, it was established as a family business and remained so until the later half of the 1800s. Within 10 years of its establishment, they were already conducting export operations in London, and by the 1820s were exporting to Portugal, South Carolina, New York, Barbados, and Sierra Leone. The brand continued to expand, and its overseas operations were made mainly through export operations. In the 1890s, Guinness, worried about how its brand and product quality were being perceived overseas, sent travelers to test the markets and conduct quality and satisfaction testing. Through that, they realized that they needed to provide the best quality beer to consumers around the world. And to do that, Guinness opened its first overseas brewery in London and soon followed by breweries in Nigeria, Malaysia, Cameroon, Ghana. And while conducting licensing operations in countries with experienced breweries that would be able to uphold the quality levels of the Guinness brand. In 1951, Guinness created its subsidiary Guinness Exports to handle bottling and distribution overseas to further ensure the quality of its product. The Grand Metropolitan, established as a public company in 1939, focused on hotel deals throughout Europe and the United States. By the 1970s, they were established as a well-known hotel chain operating on both the European and American continent. At that time, they made their first acquisition of a brewery through the purchase of Truman Honberg, and within the next 3 years acquired a 49% stake in Carlsberg Brewing, as well as acquiring Watney Mann, providing it access to a number of brewery operations across Northern Europe. However, Grand Metropolitan was beginning to realize that operating internationally in the beer market was significantly different than its overseas operations in the hotelier business. During that period, they experienced growth problems from overcapacity and unfamiliarity with its new foreign markets in France and Italy. Controlling and understanding the regulations that differed from its operations in London was increasingly hard to control from afar. This was one of the first lessons learned from the Grand Metropolitan as it began to divest from the hotel business and into a food and alcohol giant. Whether it be the building and operating or licensing of breweries and distribution giants at Guinness, or the acquisition and growth problems experienced at the Grand Metropolitan, they are important indicators as we look at Diageo's expansion efforts today. And here to talk about their expansion efforts in India is Vedika.
India has been a lucrative market for many reasons. A growing economy, expanding middle class, and rising disposable incomes have given the Indian spirits market a significant growth potential. The number of people of legal age purchasing alcohol is growing in India. This means more consumers are buying brands and they have more money to spend on them. There also has been a shift in consumer taste. India is home to 70% of the global population, which is close to 1.1 billion. India is now the largest international whiskey market by volume, reporting 8 to 10% growth annually. This makes India number one among the fastest growing whiskey markets in the world. However, Indian alcohol industry is different in many ways than the average alcohol industry. The barriers to entry and exit are really high for the players because of reasons ranging from government policies to presence of major giants in the market. In India, the topic of alcohol is a state subject and not national. Every manufacturer needs to get license in every state to operate, and separate licenses are required for production, bottling, and distribution. Excise duty, sales tax, and VAT greatly impact the pricing of the product. Host of illicit activities are dominant, especially in case of country liquor. Black marketing and hidden marketing are highly prevalent in this industry due to presence of several regional mafias. Diageo's strategy to enter Indian market has been through joint ventures and acquisition of industry leaders to understand the local consumer needs and socio-political dynamics. This helped Diageo understand the nexus of distribution and marketing liquor in an unconventional market like India. Diageo launched its operation in India in early 1990s, but the UK headquartered giant yielded ground to French rival Pernod Ricard in the early round of the Indian conquest. During this time, it relied heavily on importing the liquor and selling into Indian market through representatives. In 2006, Diageo announced a joint venture with homegrown liquor company Redico Khaitan, targeting the IMFL or the Indian made foreign liquor segment. Brands of Redico Khaitan includes 8 p.m. whiskey, Contessa rum, Old Admiral brandy, and Whitehall whiskey. In September 2006, Diageo decided to launch the indigenously developed vodka brand called Shark Tooth, aiming to position it at prestigious vodka segment. In June 2009, the Tamil Nadu government had cleared the decks for Diageo to start bottling in the state, making it the first MNC drink company to list brands in the local retail trade. The company entered into the Indian beer market with its globally top selling premium stout beer brand Guinness in 2006. Diageo claimed to control 80% and 90% of the whiskey and vodka segments. In 2013, Diageo acquired majority stakes in United Spirits Limited to transform the Indian market. It was an opportunistic move as the owner of United Spirits, Vijay Mallya, was going through a turbulent time. He was neck deep in debt due to the failure of his airline business. Diageo acquired the majority stake at good prices. But integrating business is always a challenge, not least when you are introducing a new culture and different working practices. But what really made the difference is the determination of the teams in Diageo India and United Spirits to make the transformation a success. One of the biggest changes for United Spirits has been the introduction of Diageo's operational and governance standards. In the past 4 5 years, Diageo has taken a number of steps to revive its marketing strategy in the country. The biggest growth drivers for Diageo in India have been Johnny Walker and Smirnoff. Diageo spotted two major trends in Indian markets: urbanization and premiumization. Thus, they created price segmentation. In 2001, Diageo had hurriedly exited IMFL to focus on its imported international portfolio, but revised the strategy with the domestic market witnessing sustained robust growth. Diageo has made significant noise in India during the past 2 years in a bid to boost presence across trade channels for lifestyle drinks. Diageo tied up with six retail giants like Reliance Fresh, ShopRite Hyper to distribute its wine portfolio in cities like Mumbai and Pune. Diageo helped revamp local wine shops and rebranded them as Johnny Walker Select Outlets. Clubs like Johnny Walker Club and Lounge Smirnoff Cafes were launched as a part of the surrogate advertising. These clubs aimed at giving the experience of drinks along with brand associated music, art events, and Formula One races. Broad product portfolio, new distribution channels, and geographical outreach remains the locus of Diageo's strategy. Chao will now talk about the expansion in China market.
In 2006, many factors favored Diageo entering Chinese market. 9 billion liters of spirit was consumed annually in China, which was the world's largest market by volume. GDP growth rate reached 12.7% and the middle class was growing. A change in the law also allowed foreign firms to invest in mainland spirit producers. Chinese firms were looking for internationalization opportunities as well. However, the Chinese market was saturated with strong local competitors. The market size for foreign brands was only 1 to 2%. The traditional Asian production technique was not well understood by Diageo at that time. In addition, alcoholic industry was heavily regulated by the government. All these challenges required a large upfront investment. So in 2007, Diageo chose to enter Chinese market through joint venture, which allowed it to share risks with a local firm. And a good Chinese partner could also help Diageo do business in an unfamiliar market and provide established personal relationships. Although undertaking a joint venture appeared to be a safe bet for Diageo, there were risks involved. Chinese partners' motives could be strategic rather than collaborative. Some foreign companies found themselves relegated to providing technical know-how and capitals only. It was frequently the case that the Chinese partner will effectively exercise management control over the joint venture. Not sharing the same strategic goal could be another risk. Foreign partners were generally willing to lower profits to build market share or reinvest profits into the venture, while Chinese partners were usually looking for quick cash to finance their own expansion or pay off debts. In order to mitigate potential risks, Diageo built a partnership with the Chinese firm SJF in 2005, which had the most popular spirit brand in China for more than 600 years. Diageo conducted comprehensive due diligence and understood the strategic goal of SJF, which was aligned with Diageo to continuously build a market share in the premium spirits sector and take the company into the international market. In 2007, Diageo acquired 43% stake of SJF, formed a strategic partnership. In 2008, Diageo's holdings reached 49% and increased to 53% in 2011. In 2013, Diageo acquired the remaining 43% stake of SJF, turned the joint venture into a wholly foreign-owned enterprise within 6 years. Before 2007, SJF was only able to sell around 50 tons of spirits per year to the international market. Through Diageo sales channels, SJF entered more than 20 countries and duty-free stores of more than 40 airports. After Diageo took over SJF completely, Diageo was predicting sales of the spirit in China would expand at 10% per annum until 2015. Unfortunately, as a result of the anti-extravagance drive of President Xi, the Chinese premier elected just after Diageo's acquisition of SJF, the sales of luxury items have plunged across China. Sales of Diageo crashed 66% during the first year after their acquisition. We recommend Diageo focus on expanding their portfolio on a lower-end premium sector in China, launching more products that could be paired with everyday Chinese cuisine rather than a special occasion or as a gift. Diageo should also target females with their strong flavor spirits products in the current portfolio. Although Chinese lower growth streak is expected to continue, Diageo should be optimistic about the long-term development in China. Next, Dave will talk about Diageo in Africa.
Understand the features of the African market, which has a huge middle class that has tripled over the last 30 years and is expected to increase another 42% by 2060. These individuals in the middle class cultivate sophisticated tastes and preferences which will ultimately propel sales of spirits. Africa holds 15% of the world population, and McKinsey estimates an addition of 38 million households next year. Africa is the home of the youngest population in the world with more than half of its inhabitants under the age of 20, in which over 85 million people are expected to reach the legal drinking age over the next decade. Better education and higher disposable incomes among this generation can be expected to drive sales of premium spirits due to more refined taste preferences. Africa has experienced a consistent economic growth of about 4 to 5%, and several African countries have made it to the list of the world's fastest growing economies. Africa is also experiencing record low fuel prices, which will allow Diageo to reduce costs associated with transportation of product. Currently, there is hardly a prominent international spirits culture in Africa, and this is a huge market opportunity at Diageo's disposal to penetrate. Current and future consumers will have a much improved purchasing power. Going into how Diageo will operate in Africa, in December of 2015, Diageo terminated an agreement with the Heineken Partnership in South Africa to strike a new joint venture in South Africa with Nambia Breweries, which a company said will be fully focused on developing the beer portfolio. Diageo will continue to make ready-to-drink products out of its wholly owned facilities in Durban, while Heineken will brew Guinness for bottle distribution under a license. There are currently 12 breweries, one owned by Sedibeng in South Africa, which Diageo holds a 25% equity stake. There are 4 sites that produce sorghum beer in South Africa and 5 manufacturing facilities, including blending, malting, and cider plants. Beer and spirits produced by third parties under license in 19 other African countries, and Nigeria is the heart of the business in Africa, where Diageo owns 54.3% of a listed company whose principal brands are Guinness, Harp, and Malta. In East Africa, Diageo owns 50.03% of East African Breweries Limited, which has a 51% equity in Serengeti Breweries Limited, which is located in Tanzania. In the African regional markets, Diageo has wholly owned subsidiaries in Cameroon, Ethiopia, and Mozambique, and majority-owned subsidiaries in Ghana and the Seychelles, and Angola supplied third-party distributor. Diageo has also made arrangements with Castle Group, who license, brew, and distribute Guinness and spirits in the majority of other sub-Saharan countries. However, even though Diageo has established solid partnerships for manufacturing, producing, and distributing product, they still face several risks in the African market. The key issue that needs to be addressed is the overwhelming amount of illicit alcohol that is sold very cheap compared to the name brands at the surrounding markets. Due to the lack of police threat and government regulation, the illicit alcohol sellers will continue to sell their product. Another huge risk is the water-stressed areas that surround current production sites. Water is critical to Diageo's products and operations and has to be deliberately monitored in order for the company to be successful. For Diageo moving forward in Africa, the strategy is to grow beer faster than the market to prepare for the booming expected growth of 85 million inhabitants reaching the legal drinking age over the next decade. Diageo must accelerate growth of the spirits through the investment in infrastructure as well. It is important to continue to build relationships with local sourcing because that directly supports commercial operations and indirectly supports Diageo's position by bringing wider benefits to society. Our recommendation for Diageo to move forward in Africa is to increase sourcing agricultural and packaging materials locally. They should also equip suppliers with tools to protect water sources in water-stressed areas. The new equipment should use water more efficiently while simultaneously reducing costs during operations. To combat the illicit alcohol sellers, Diageo should sell low-price version of big-name brands in the major cities and rural areas. Diageo should also introduce more ready-to-drink brand extensions to eliminate the need to purchase both spirits and its non-alcoholic counterparts. The last recommendation would be to build relationships with government and society for positive brand image through the continuation of socially responsible programs such as the Pan-African Water of Life program that started in 2006 and brought safe drinking water to over 10 million people. Now I will pass on to Chris, who will conclude this presentation.
Diageo used lessons from its history of operations at Guinness and Grand Metropolitan when entering markets by using joint ventures. Through those efforts, they gain and develop an understanding of the market to include socioeconomic, regulatory, and distribution channels, and find the biggest growth opportunities in each market. Doing so allows each regional manager to develop the brand portfolio in each market, developing each region accordingly to meet the needs of the local market. Even though they're a global brand powerhouse as shown in the brands they offer, they focus their efforts on the regional needs while using their global supply chain and knowledge to create efficiencies in production and distribution. Thank you.